Hello, and today we'll be playing a new game called Hearthfire. This has been out for over a year or two, maybe, and I first found this game over a week ago. I don't know anything about it besides the fact that the MC is an otter and the other person there is a polar bear. So, it looks like they're in a Arctic environment. Let's go ahead and start. The car engine rumbled, a steady rhythm that filled the cabin of my car. It had been hours since I had last gotten out. Honestly, I was starting to lose the feelings in my legs. A quiet sigh blew between my lips as I stared at the curving, winding road ahead. It would be a lot easier if she lived closer. Even though I muttered under my breath, I could barely hear it under the breeze coming from the car vents. I hate how cold it is out here, and I was almost regretting not taking a flight. Instead, I'm stuck braving treacherous mountain roads and banks of unplowed snow. I'm not even sure my little blue sedan is rated for this kind of travel or this kind of distance. I could hear the subtle rattle of the engine under the hood, belts creaking from the chilly they were forced to endure. I don't think they were designed to deal with this kind of cold, and I would rather not think of what would happen if they broke. I guess it beats hyperventilating in an airplane. I'd really rather not repeat that experience again. My fingers drummed along the edge of the old steering wheel, some of the leather faded and even peeling in sections. It mirrored my mental state fairly accurately. Distracting myself, I tapped at my phone. A glass rectangle sitting in the event holder came to light, a blue-white glow radiating from the glass, complete with a background image that I still need to change. Damn, almost no signal. I could feel a pang of anxiety deep inside my stomach. Not only could I get totally lost out here, nobody would find me either. Hell, the GPS wasn't even showing me on a proper road at this point. The old system that was stuffed into the dashboard of my car was as useless as me. A quick twist of the radio knob only gave me a deluge of static, as soft as anathema to anything relaxing I might have been searching for. A look in the rearview mirror revealed a nervous young otter looking back at me. After 21 years, you would think I might have better decision-making skills. My jaw grit as I twisted the wheel, letting out a hard exhale through my nostrils. Apparently, I had managed to drift sharply, tires running over the median and towards the rocky mountain wall. I really gotta pay more attention to the road. The falling snow was starting to get heavier. The sky is turning a shade of gray above me. It was only now that I realized how stupid it was to be this far north, this far away from home. My stomach tied into a knot as I tried to push the thought away. I know my parents were the worst set of nags, but that didn't mean my sister had to move to the opposite end of the continent. A slip of the back tires on some black ice caused the entire cabin to stutter around me, my fingers gripping even tighter around the steering wheel. Over the edge of the road, I could see a forested abyss, verdant evergreens dusted with layers of snow, almost like frosting. A soft chime from my phone distracted me just enough to make my eyes flip back to the glowing screen. It was a text. "I'm sorry. Please come back." My mouth instantly went dry as I saw the words. I didn't even need to know who sent them for my heart to sink into my stomach. Thoughts spiral as my breath hits, my eyes glued to the burning white screen. I stared at the notification for a long time, far enough that I should have. The tires hit a patch of slick, ice-covered road, the car feeling like it was being suspended over water as I frantically tried to regain control. The back end swung around, fishtailing as tires squealed, making an ungodly noise. Panic filled my mind as I pumped at the brakes with no avail. The edge of the road didn't even have guardrails, and the snow that had piled along the seemingly unused roadway didn't even slow me down. It happened so fast I didn't even have time to scream as my car went sliding over the edge. Everything was suspended in the air. The lights beaming from the hood of my car illuminated the pines down below. They were like phalanxes aimed straight at me, pointed in, spelling certain death. The crash of the tires against the mountainside sent everything flying in my car, from empty cups of coffee to my own phone. The screen flashed past my eyes, showing the photo of a smiling lion, his arm draped around a sort of familiar-looking otter. Air was knocked out of me by the first impact, forcing the seatbelt to grab me so hard that I wondered if I had managed to break a web. Another impact caused the car to spin wildly, kicking out accumulated snow as the passenger side door crushed inwards. I only managed to get a good look at the large tree I was careening right towards, the thing rushing up on me before slamming into the front of my car. The sound of itself shattering was deafening. There was only a brief glimpse of the front crumpling before my vision was filled with the steering wheel traveling straight towards my face. An explosion of stars behind my lids, vision flashing bright white as my entire mind reeled from the earth-shattering impact. The worst pain I had ever felt in my life racked my body as my mind agonizingly seared. It felt like someone tried to cleave my skull in half. Everything was a blur. My eyes refused to work correctly as I managed to peel my forehead from what felt like the remains of the steering wheel. Not even an airbag to dampen the blow. My hand fumbled from the handle, soft digging echoing around me as the door popped open, yellow running lights barely illuminating the dark. The sound was a single thread of order in a sea of chaos. My legs were moving on their own, as if a primal part of my brain had seized control of my battered body. I could feel the world around me tilting, somehow falling through the open door of the seatbelt, audibly wheeling back into place. The cold shot my system, causing me to gasp as I fell into the pile of accumulated snow. Oh God, am I going to die? I could barely see, I could barely think. My feet moved on their own, pushing me up from the frigid ground and through the pine trees instead. It was like I was an injured animal, my head working on instinct to get me away from the catastrophic danger I had been through. Snow crunched, the only sound around me besides my ragged breathing. I could feel the tears flowing from my eyes onto the freeze in my cheek for soft puffs of breath blew in front of me, obscuring my vision further as I limped to nowhere in particular. I wanted to cry out, to call for help, for anything, anyone. However, the only thing that came out of me was a soft and pathetic squeak. Wobbling, my legs finally gave out, my body tumbling into the snow, crashing through the powdered substance. Despite laying still, I could feel the world swirling around me. The blow to my head had scrambled just above every sense I had. Was I dying? I couldn't feel. Everything was going numb. The edges of my vision starting to fade as I lay helplessly in the snow. The branches of the pines swayed above, a light snowfall coming down, flakes catching the light in almost hypnotic fashion. I couldn't move. My entire body was in shock or just numb. The only feeling was a warm trickle that felt like it was coming from my forehead. I couldn't even bring my hand up to check to see if I was bleeding. Maybe I deserved this, to have my life cut short before it even really began. Even as I lay there, the feeling of panic was bleeding away along with everything else. It was like someone pulled a drain plug, the thoughts and apprehensions I had about dying alone, the snow draining away. Maybe it was better this way. At least I don't have to suffer. I could hear voices on the edge of my consciousness, muttering. Most of it was a muddy mess, but I could pick out a few words. You're lucky. Found him in time. He is alright. Alright. Did something happen to me? He'll be fine. The stitches are set, but I still want my office. Very well. Who was speaking? None of these voices were familiar to me. Despite feeling like I should be panicking, the only thing I could feel was the urge to sleep. I could hear movement around me. Footsteps. Whoever was nearby was gone. The sound of a door clicking shut, leaving me in comforting silence. At least I was warm again. Warm and comfortable. Unconsciousness beckoned once again, pulling me underneath the waves as I let the worry bleed from me along with the rest of my thoughts. My entire body twitched. Bright light pounding at my eyes, demanding that I open them up. My head posed in time with my heartbeat, making an uncomfortable throbbing as I slowly sat up. What the fuck happened? My voice was horrible, my ears pitting back from the gurgle that churned out of my throat. Blinking a few times, the room around me slowly came into focus. The light that I saw in my eyes was going in from a nearby window, snow coating the edges of the glass. Fleeting memories were starting to come back to me as I reached out to touch my hand. I hissed, pulling my fingers away, searing pain radiating from where I touched my forehead. It was bandaged, tightly wrapped, my hair pulled back. Fuck. Reality was starting to set in. Where I was, what happened to me. I was in a car crash, and yet somehow I survived. I could remember voices, one that chatted while I was teetering on the brink of consciousness. Did someone find me out in the snow? This certainly wasn't a frozen wasteland. Instead, it looked like I was in someone's bedroom. I pulled the covers up my knees, looking around, feeling a little apprehensive for my surroundings. Especially when I realized I was naked under the seats, my thick tail tucked between my legs, heat crawling up my neck into my cheeks as I realized someone had stripped me down. A quick look across the room, I spotted the wayward garments. They were folded up, sitting neatly on a chair in the corner. Practically bolting out of the bed, I grabbed at them, fumbling thanks to the subtle throbbing of my head injury. Jeans went on quick, shimmying into them as I bounced on one foot, pushing my other leg in. Shirt nets followed by sneakers onto my feet. Hugging my jacket onto my shoulders, I made a move for the door. I was thankful for whoever saved me, but I didn't have time to stick around. Adrenaline running high, my thoughts were about finding my car and my things, and finding a way out of here. Looks like I was in a wooden cabin, fairly small by the looks of it. Nearby a pot bubbled cast iron and hanging above a crackling fire. The smell coming from it was divine, as a single silver ladle sticking out from the edge of the bubbling stew. I shook my head, clearing my thoughts. As hungry as I was, now wasn't the time to think about food. I had to get out of here. The thought of axe-wielding hillbilly cannibals crossed my mind, making my stomach do an elaborate somersault response. The foe's fur going on in over the back of my neck and tail as I heard thumping. A shadow cast over the nearby window, moving towards the front door. My eyes looked left and right, frantically looking for a place to hide. There was nothing. The door handle clicked. Officers running short. A very large polar bear stepped through the door, a cold wind blowing in from behind him, a small smattering of snow rolling past his boots. Every fear in the back of my mind was instantly validated as I found myself stumbling back. Reaching out to the closest object I could brandish, I raised my voice. Stay back. I'm warning you. The bear stopped his advance, a stoic, stone-like expression on his face. Vivid amber eyes rolled down, staring at the gleaming, deadly object that was pointed in his direction. A ladle. The harmless head gleamed in the light of the crackling fire, intimidating nobody but my own self-esteem. Regardless, I was wrenched out of my grip by the bear's massive hand, disarmed like an unruly child. He regarded it with amusement, a spark pulling across his muzzle. The bear moved over to the fire, dropping the ladle into the orange stew before giving it a few steers. Watched the entire domestic scene unfold, as if I wasn't even part of the equation. The big bear ignored me in favor of his food. He still ignored me, lifting the end of it up to his lips, taking a tasting sip of the broth. Hello? His ears swiveled in my direction, signal that he had heard me. He just didn't deign to respond. Okay, I'm leaving now. Not wise. I blinked, the two blunt words rumbling from the bear's throat as he spoke. He didn't break from what he was doing, dropping the ladle back in before giving it another slow steer. Yeah, but injured. I found you in the snow. Wow. Talk about obtuse. What's this guy's deal? Yeah, but you should eat. I don't really have time for that. I've got to go find my... The look he flashed me was nothing short of smug, or at least as much as it could get with how expressionless he seemed. Maybe I can stay for a while. I could feel my cheeks flush, tail wrapping around my leg. Who knows how long it's been since I've eaten. Gas station snacks were holding me over anymore. Good. This entire situation was surreal, stuck in the cabin in the middle of the woods, and now this polar bear was going to feed me stew. He had gotten up, ambled to the back kitchen before returning with two bowls, one in each hand. The one he offered to me was pushed none too gently into my chest, causing me to scramble to take it from him. He was already filling up his bowl, pouring a fair amount of the liquid straight in without a care, golden orange liquid threatening to splash out of the rim. Vegetables and bits of fish bobbed to the surface, only making my hunger pang harder. Thanks. He grunted in affirmation, moving to the nearby sofa before dropping himself down. It squeaked, forced to bear the unseen's overwhelming weight as it subtly sagged. Even though he was intimidating with his size and that scar, I guess he wasn't so bad. I never held a grudge against anyone offering me a free meal. Turns out that using a ladle as a utensil instead of a weapon was much more effective. The orange-red liquid poured into my bowl, the stuff sloshing near the brim. I had to do a little shuffle to make sure I didn't spill it all over the wooden floor myself. Awkwardly, I made my way over, sitting next to the bear, my gaze flicking to him every so often. I was distracted by the first spoonful of stew, my eyes going wide. Holy shit, this is good. I mumbled, my mouth still half full. He let out another grunt, and from what I could tell, a hint of a smile pulled on his muscle as he guzzled his own silver down. By the time I finished my first bowl, he must have been on his third. Well, this guy could really pack it down. No wonder he's got a bit of a medal going on. Probably helps with the cold weather, though. A clink of his bowl caught my attention, the bear placing it on the nearby coffee table. We were going. We? To the village. My expression screwed up as I tried to decipher the blunt bear's intentions. Village? Why? You need medical attention. I guess what he was saying was true. I had gas in my hand, and shockingly nothing else seemed out of place. Now that I thought about it, just waltzing out of that bed with a little more than a headache was surprising. I at least expected a twisted ankle. Wriggling my feet proved that expectation wrong, however. Guess I was lucky, for once. Come. Blinking, I looked up. The bear was already at the door, staring at me expectantly, holding it open with a large paw. How the heck did he move so fast? Getting up, I awkwardly followed him outside, the door being pulled shut behind me. Turning my head over my shoulder, I got a good look at the cabin. Surprisingly, it wasn't that big. Cozy, maybe? It might have been nice if it wasn't effectively stranded here for the time being. The rumble of an engine caught my attention, bringing me out of my distracted daydream. Pulling up was a polar bear on a rather nice-looking snowmobile. It was nearly spotless, mint condition, really. I was almost a little envious considering the rusting undercarriage of my own sedan. He scooted forward, patting the back of the seat softly, gesturing for me to get on. Get on. He raised his voice to speak over the rumble of the engine. I wasn't entirely sure if I wanted to just get onto the stranger's vehicle. Butterflies fluttering in my stomach, making the hot stool I had gulped down turn uncomfortably. The bear sensed my hesitation, his brows furrowing as he glared at me. You do not want to walk. It is over an hour there. That's all the convincing I need. Taking a few steps, I vaulted over the back, nearly swinging clean off the other side. If it wasn't for a sudden arm stopping me, I might have gotten a face full of snow. Hang on, it would be rough. It wasn't long until the cabin vanished out of sight from over my shoulder. The rushing wind whipped around us, making me hunker my head down. He seemed to know what he was doing, the two of us shooting through the forest. It was faster than I was used to, hugging tight just to keep my balance. At least he was large. He acted as a natural shield between me and the freezing winds blowing by. Lingering on that thought, I could feel my face heating up a little. Being caught up in everything, I hadn't really taken this stranger into account, especially how intimately close we were now. Embarrassing as it was, I had to stop myself from leaning into him. Thankfully, a change of scenery distracted me. Following the nearby bearding creek, the pines that loomed above us finally parted. The scene was unlike any I've ever seen before. Outstretched snow-capped mountains seemed to stretch on and around us into the horizon. Dancing along the foot of one of them looked like a small town, golden light shimmering through the windows. Electricity? Sure enough, there were old-looking poles dotting through the village, hanging electrical cables stretching between them. Where there's electricity, there's phones. Just the thought of being able to get a call out of this middle of nowhere town was enough to help calm my anxiety. If I'm lucky, maybe I'll get to sleep in my own bed again soon. Well, until I stopped the polar bear cut the engine, the thing whirring softly until we were left in silence. Huh? Why did we stop? There was still a distance between us and the town ahead. respectful, even apprehensive distance away. The bear looked away as if saying to something. You must go alone. I blinked, staring at the bear. Those emerald eyes refused to meet mine. Wait, why? Again, he remained silent. The snow lightly drifted around him, swirling around his head and shoulders, his stone-like expression subtly shifting. I don't know where I'm going. The bear returned his gaze reluctantly, looking at me. It's a building with several square windows. He gestured, pointing to a particular building on the edge of town. Sure enough, the blocky architecture caught my eyes. I think I see it. Even though I had only just met this bear, it felt strange being separated from him. He was the only constant in this new, unfamiliar landscape. Why can't you come with me? I paused, thinking over my next words. Might as well be honest. I don't really feel comfortable being on my own. I waved my hand around awkwardly as I sat on the back of his snowmobile. I don't know where I'm at. My voice swung as I spoke again. Scared. It wasn't far from the truth. This bear was the only vaguely familiar thing here. Even that was a tenuous description. I was lost in a wintry hellscape, and the only person showing me kindness was about to leave me behind. You will be fine. Tell him Tarnwak sent you. He should remember. I bit at my lower lip, my legs feeling glued to the seat. They didn't want to move, like someone having replaced them with lead weights. It was then that I realized I hadn't asked the bear his name, Tarnwak. It really sealed in at this point that I was far from home. What a stupid decision to drive all the way out here. I should have taken a flight, regardless of anxiety, or in hindsight, just found a therapist. I will wait for you. His hand was on my shoulder, squeezing it gently, the large paw engulfing it. It was warm, toasty, a harsh contrast to the chill of the air around us. Chris. He blinked, his round ears shriveling as he regarded me. My name is Chris, Smith. The bear stared at me, prompting that awkward feeling to well up inside me again. It's kind of boring, my name, but I guess it's easy to remember. My only saving grace was that it's freezing, otherwise I would have broken out in a sweat from embarrassment. Ayek. Excuse me? My name, Tarnwak Ayek. Shifting awkwardly, my tail thumped along the back of the snowmobile, the feeling in my legs finally coming back to me. It's nice to, meet you. Thanks for saving me and, feeding me. I followed up with a pop of a laugh, awkwardly rubbing the back of my head. You're stalling. Like a dagger to the heart. I let out a sharp exhale, hanging my head dejectedly. He was right, I was stalling. It took a few wiggles, but my shorter legs managed to slip off of the seat, the snow crunching underneath my shoes. Keenly, I was reminded that my footwear wasn't exactly rated for the climate. It brought up concerns on if I'd even be able to make it there without picking up a mild case of frostbite. I would be here. Go. Blunt, but I couldn't deny that it was comforting. There was a subtle warmth in his words, guarded, but still there regardless. So many questions about who he was, and why he's helping me. Was it really just an obligation to take care of a guy he found nearly dead? Still, I apparently have a doctor's appointment I needed to attend. I just hope they take my insurance. Suppressing a small chuckle, I gave the bear a small wave as I trudged towards the town. Looking back over my shoulder, I saw Tarnwak sitting on his snowmobile. He was leaning over the handlebars, watching me. Almost to reassure me, he gave a wave with one of his large paws. The town stretched out in front of me, my feet thankful that I had already managed to find a road to walk on. And to be fair, I was pretty tired of plunging each foot through several inches of snow as well. About 5 minutes later, I had already made it into town properly. Not many people out of their homes. Not that I could blame them. It was freezing outside. At least from my perspective. The whole town had a rusted look going for it. Old buildings and slanted roofs and plenty of snow on everything. It seemed like the doctor's office was on the outskirts of the rest of the town. Strange, but at least my feet were thankful for the fact. Sipping along the walkway and past the windows, I pushed my way in through the doors. Bells chimed as I stepped in, being hit with a refreshing wave of warmth. Not exactly what I expected. It looked like a regular doctor's office for the most part anyway. Nobody at the front desk though. Hello? Just a minute. The voice was faint, coming from somewhere in the back. Yeah, that was the other voice I heard when I was out of it. At least my feet weren't cold anymore, enjoying the feeling coming back to my toes as I shuffled over to one of the lobby chairs, dropping myself into it. Eyeing a few magazines on the nearby table, I decided to stack one of them, flipping through the pages. What the? They were all horribly out of date, or amended to several years even. Fashion magazines made up the majority of the pile, it seemed. I'm not entirely sure fashion trends could reach all the way out here to begin with. Wherever here is. I could feel the loss of my phone keenly. I couldn't remember the last time I was without one, the subconscious urge to stick my hand into my pocket still tugging at my mind. Nobody with me, and no screen to distract me either. This really was a frozen hell. The headache I was nursing grew a little stronger, my fingers going up to my bandages as I gingerly stroked along the fabric. I really hope it's just superficial. I hate to find out that I somehow have brain damage. Would I even be able to tell if I had brain damage? Everything felt fine upstairs so far, minus the fact that my head had been split open by my steering wheel. Ugh. My poor car. I know she was a little better than a jogger with a decade of age on her, but that little sedan didn't deserve this fate. The magazine in my grip crinkled as I rolled it up, squeezing it tightly, channeling the wailing anxiety that was cutting my breath short. How would I even get back home? Even traveling by a car all the way back was an ordeal. There was no way I would be able to do it on foot. His hike? I could feel my face screw up automatically, my whiskers bunching. Yeah, right. Who would pick up a random auto on the side of the road, let alone take them across the country back home? I might have survived the crash, but my hopes for leaving this place seemed dismally slim. The sound of a door opening caught my attention, pulling me out of my darkening thoughts. A tall snow leopard rounded the corner, a bushy tail flicking around behind a stereotypically white lab coat. He was smartly dressed too, not what I was expecting from a remote mountain village. He blinked, bright blood red eyes staring straight at me. The sight was interesting. He smirked, looking down at me, the feline having at least a good foot of height over me, maybe just as tall as Tarmac. Having a good look? I didn't mean to stare, but he laughed, an amused sound as he tucked a clipboard he was carrying under his arm. Probably the first time you've seen an albino animal. Sorta, I think. There might have been at least one on campus. He gave me a look, a brow arching. Campus, huh? Sounds like you're far away from home, if you don't mind me saying. Yeah, that's putting it lightly. By the way, my name is Philip, Dr. Philip Williams. He stuck out a hand, his coat sleeve falling back to reveal a strong but thin-looking limb. I gave him a shake with my own paw, noticing the strength behind the doctor's grip. Chris, Smith, how about we get you checked up? But first, before we continue, Chris, despite several questions rolling around my head, the doctor did have a point. Better get this over with first. Sure. Getting up awkwardly, I managed to follow the doctor around the corner and past the back door. The hall was blindingly white, the smell of cleaning solution making the air reek as we slipped into one of the back examination rooms. Seemed like a rather small clinic. Then again, I couldn't imagine a place like this would need a full-on hospital. Actually, I was kind of surprised there was even this place. I don't know what I was expecting, but not this level of modern-looking flair. Before we begin, I would like to get some x-rays. He could see my worried expression, the feline's face turning to a sympathetic smile. Don't worry, it's mostly a formality. I just want to make sure you didn't break anything during your tumble. Again, putting it lightly, I don't have to wear one of those hospital smocks, right? The ones that sew off your backsides. I suddenly felt very self-conscious about my body and the possibility of being asked to strip in front of someone else. I can't smile at amusement. No, I'm not going to subject you to that. I quite took a rumble from his throat. You're quite fine as you are. Good. Still, this guy's personality was a pretty hard contrast to Tonwax. He seemed chatty. I had to wonder if it was bedside manner or because he was just a conversationalist. I've only been to the hospital once in my life, but the feeling of itchy fabric was something I didn't forget. Glad I don't have to go through that again. Blinking, I stared at a freshly produced clipboard in front of me, a white pen attached to the end of it. I'll give you a few minutes to fill out this paperwork. Just knock on the door when you're ready. The leopard slipped through the door, the sound of a clicking shut behind him following. My eyes wandered around the examination room, taking in my surroundings. It looked fairly ordinary, all things considered. There was even a small sculpture depicting a skull and the anatomy of a spine. An unpleasant shiver went up through me. I really don't like to think about the stuff inside me. Still, I guess I couldn't complain. We hadn't even asked about payment, and, well, I guess he did help patch me up already. My fingers went to the bandaging over my head, tracing gingerly along the edges. I don't really want to think about what's underneath a grisly sight, probably. I already have enough problems with my self-image. A scar running through my hairline isn't the change of appearance I'm looking for. Turning my attention back to the paperwork, I noticed there were a lot of standard questions: my age, blood type, that sort of thing. What even was my blood type? I couldn't remember off the top of my head the information stored on my driver's license, which was still somewhere in the mangled mess that's not my car. I groaned internally as I scribbled across the paper haphazardly, not really bothering to put much effort into the information I was filling out. Finishing up the last of the form, I got up, rapping on the back of the door a few times before returning back to the edge of the examination bed. The door popped open, the doctor smoothly entering back in, that lab coat of his flowing along him behind. The door popped open, the doctor smoothly entering back in, that lab coat of his flowing along behind him. I took my clipboard without question, looking it over quickly before giving a short, curt nod. All right, Chris, I want you to lay back for me. I did as he asked, shifting around until I was laying snugly back against the padded examination bed. Above me was a rather large device on a pair of hinged arms. It looked like a machine of some sort, and a pair of handles sticking out of it. Now, try to stay as still as possible. The machine hummed to life as I started to flip a few switches. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a laptop coming to life, the device sitting on the edge of a nearby countertop. Wait, a computer? That bode well at least. Maybe if it was a working computer, there's a phone line I could use to call home. Please stop visiting. His tone was polite, but I could sense a gentle warning when I heard one. Lying completely flat on my back, I tried not to breathe. Everything others can hold their breath for just about forever. The machine above me hummed, the articulated arms moving as smooth as butter, the bossy machine sweeping from my toes to the top of my head. He seemed to take extra time, in particular around my skull, giving me a good view of the strange machine. I've never had an x-ray taken like this before, just a few times at the dentist's office, but that was a completely different beast. I suppressed a small shiver that went through me. Even though the place was heated, the air was still a little chilly for my liking. All done. Good job, Chris. The praise, while genuine, didn't really do much for me in my current state. Honestly, I didn't even know what my current state was. Shock, maybe? I'm not sure the reality of my situation has really set in yet. Let's go ahead and get these checked out. The doctor's voice pulled me from my thoughts, my head tilting once as he moved to his laptop. The cat's bushy tail flicked behind him, the feline tapping a few times at the device's trackboard. He hummed softly, images appearing on the laptop screen, the feline clicking through them. So far so good. He didn't seem particularly concerned about what he was seeing. Slowly, I pulled myself up, sitting over the edge of the ceiling, my feet dangling. Everything seems fine. Tom Rock told me that you were in a car accident. Is that correct? Yeah. He turned to look at me, his crimson eyes picking at me. How are you feeling? The question was innocent enough, and yet it felt like it had several layers to it. It was a question that I had been asking myself, something that I wasn't sure of the answer to. A little freaked out. I don't think it was really set in yet. That's not entirely surprising. I blinked a few times. You've been through a traumatic event. You're lucky to even be alive right now. His gaze softened as he regarded me. Doubtly so, considering Tarwak found you in the snow. Any longer you would have suffered frostbite or possibly would have died of hypothermia. Thinking of the polar bear, that brought to mind a question that had been nibbling at the edge of my consciousness. He wouldn't come with me to the clinic, I mean. He looked at me, a brow lifting. Really now, he didn't have you walk all the way here, did he? There was a small amount of concern in his voice, a tall cat eyeing me up and down. No, he took me here. He's waiting on the outskirts for me to come back. Ah, I see. Does he usually do that? He reluctant to share the information with me, the feline swaying where he stood, pretending to be more focused on his laptop than his patient. I'm sure you may have gathered by now, but He paused as if trying to figure out his next words. A rather private man. Yeah, I picked that up so far. I made a few words more like. The snow leopard laughed, a short burst of a sound, his tail giving a quick flick. You certainly aren't wrong. Whenever he comes for his exams or treatment, getting information out of him is fairly difficult. He shrugged his shoulders, flashing me a toothy smile. But I shouldn't be insulting my patience. He seemed satisfied with his work on the laptop, the feline closing it with a soft click. I watched as he moved over to the cabinets, seeming to pull out a few pieces of testing equipment, standard stuff, a stethoscope, a pen light. I'm going to do a few standard tests just to gauge your overall health, if you don't mind, Mrs. Smith. Yeah, I didn't like it when people called me that. At least it's better than some names I've been called, I guess. Sure, I don't really have anywhere else to be. The laugh that came from me was unconvincing, especially when I thought about that polar bear sitting alone out in the cold. I really hope he's going to be okay by himself. So, what's his deal? Why won't he come into town? Why is he so? I paused, trying to think of the right word. Prickly. I mean, he's nice, but closed off. Yeah, what's up with him? He had been writing on a clipboard, the doctor's gaze flicking across the paperwork he was filling out. He lifted his gaze back up to me before letting out a short, tired sigh. I'm not entirely sure how much I should reveal, but suffice it to say he's a bit of a hermit. Don't get me wrong, he certainly has his reasons. Reasons? As if my own predicament wasn't head-spinning enough, and had an entire mystery dropped into my lap. There was. He paused as if trying to figure out how to phrase what he was about to say next. An incident several years back. Ever since then, he's been in self-imposed exile. Exile? That wasn't a word I was expecting to hear in modern times. It's nothing you have to worry about. I'm sure that he'll be willing to tell you more. He laughed, seemingly amused with himself. Or not, it's tricky. It took him months before he started using more than 3 words at a time with me. He flipped through the papers on his notepad before setting it aside on the nearby countertop. The feline rested his hips against it as he crossed his arms over his chest. Well, the good news is that you're in good health, despite the laceration to your forehead. Again, my fingers automatically went out to the wound in question. I managed to clean the wound and apply stitches. He paused, his expression drifting. I'm not going to lie to you. There's going to be a mark. I sensed an apprehensive bubble in my stomach as I bit at my lower lip. How bad? He let out an exhale, a finger tapping at the edge of the countertop. His expression didn't exactly do any favors. You're going to have a scar going through your forehead, your head fur. It's not going to be too bad. With a bit of styling, I'm sure it could be easily covered up, mostly. Better than losing my legs or being crushed like a crunched up can in the wreck of my car, I guess. Still, it sucks that I'm not walking away from this unscathed. My thoughts wandered, eyes drifting aimlessly until they caught a flash of white plastic, a phone. Do you mind if I use your phone? I'd really like to call my parents or anyone really. But the thought of calling my parents was the idea I have to contact someone to let them know I'm not dead, though I didn't like the apprehensive look that flashed across his face. I'm afraid the recent weather has interfered with the phone lines. He raised his finger as he moved to a nearby telephone that was sitting at the end of the countertop. My brow arched curiously as he picked up the wireless receiver, showing it to me. He hit the speaker button. His padded thumb pushing over the green button. My ears instantly snapped back, started knocking the stage. The device, thankfully it was cut short. The doctor dropped the receiver back into its cradle. Shit. This isn't good. The entire town's having some sort of blackout. The phone lines have been damaged. Nobody in town has a signal. Internet? The desperation of my voice was painful, coming out as a bit of a squeak as it broke. He gave me a genuinely sympathetic look, reaching out, putting a hand on my shoulder. I'm afraid not. Heavy snowstorms have been ravaging the area for the last several weeks. My ear flicked, a subtle look of worry crossing over his face. We were lucky just to have power running. Even that hasn't been entirely reliable. I could feel another swell of panic forming in my chest breath being stolen from me. Attempts to leave the village haven't been successful as well. The roads are unusable in their current state. Even the nearby rail system hasn't run in weeks. He has his clipboard handing him the snow leopard, tapping at it with a padded thumb. But I'll see what I can do, alright? Alright. Another thought struck me, a far-fetched one, but a small ray of hope. How about cell signal? His mouth quirked, the feline setting his clipboard back down again. You certainly won't have any reception here. If you head to one of the nearby peaks, you can get some scant signal. It's spotty at best. And please, if you decide to, don't go out there on your own. It's dangerous enough for someone as experienced as Tonwak. He shook his head. I would hate to have to treat you for more serious injuries. Well, that's all that I wanted to check up on for the day, Mrs. Smith. Despite the gas in your head, you are in otherwise decent health. The gas turned in my head as I sat there silently. The doctor watching me with those red eyes. Not that I was really paying attention. Alright, don't panic. I have someone who sings. My lower lip quipped. Nice. Weird, but nice. With him in my corner, maybe I could figure a way out of here. It's not like I'm pressed for time. I guess as long as he's willing to let me stay with him for a little bit. With that in mind, I gave the doctor a smile. Yeah, I guess. Thanks for checking on me. His smile shifted, turning more genuine as his fluffy tail flicked. Do I owe you anything? I kind of left my wallet in my car. He gave a dismissive way, the feline already leaning on the door frame. Consider it my good Samaritan work for the year. He chuckled softly, the noise a warbling purr coming from the tall cat. However, if you really want to make it up, I could always send you a bill later. I think I'm good. I laughed awkwardly, rubbing the back of my neck. Anything else I can do for you while you're here? I thought the question over. A subtle throb of pain across my forehead answered it for me. My head kind of hurts. To be expected, I did have to put several stitches in. At first, the cast was mentioned my hair being stitched back together. The doctor moved to the other end of the room, bustling through a cabinet, fiddling with a few containers before handing me a start orange bottle with a white cap. Take one tablet a day. It should help with the pain. I nodded, taking the bottle from him as he handed it over. Though that did leave one last question on my mind. Am I gonna have to have the stitches removed? He chuckled quietly, flashing me a clinical smile. One that already answered my question. Unfortunately, yes. So I'll have to see you in a few weeks. My brow scrunched. Why would I still be here? He shook his head slowly. Nobody has been able to leave Iskut for the last week. My fingers wandered across my bandaging, feeling over my forehead as I thought. Has anyone tried? I mean, I can't just be stuck here, right? There was a small amount of desperation I didn't like in my voice. That same feeling of hopelessness returning, the room feeling like it was starting to close in on me. Yes, and they haven't returned. The storms are rather intense. There's not much one can do to survive when one hits, save for hunkering down in their home. He shook his head slowly. I don't mean to scare you, but it's a very trying time. I'm sorry you're caught up in it. He chuckled softly, his bushy tail sweeping back and forth behind him, the tip of it grazing the floor. Any other time I would have enjoyed the company of someone not from the province. I'm from Washington. My mouth moved on its own, the words spilling out of me automatically without my consent. The doctor stared at me, his expression blanking as he locked eyes with me. The state? As in, yeah. My words tumbled out of me once more, feeling my face heat up in embarrassment. You are. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. Very far from home, Mr. Smith. My ears floated back. I could feel the heat creeping up my cheeks, wanting to swing into my shirt to hide from the snow leopard's critical stare. It was a stupid idea to drive all the way to my sister's. I knew this entire time, and yet I did it anyway. Now this doctor was hammering it in, and somehow it made me feel even more like an idiot. Yeah, I guess. He looked like he wanted to ask me more questions, except for his jawline and a slight twist of his lip cluing me in. Are there any other questions you might have for me? I'm sure you might have something you want to ask considering the circumstances. I thought over the question. Did I have anything I wanted to ask? He shook his head. No, not usually. We've had some heavy snowstorms throughout the years, but this one takes the cake. He tapped at the edge of the countertop. He was leaning against his crimson gaze thoughtfully, drifting to the nearby window. Climate change, perhaps. Either way, is unpredictable. Freezing temperatures and heavy snowfall makes it nearly impossible to travel this side of the Yukon. I tried to stifle a soft whine, small ears folding back as I tried not to think about how trapped I was. Maybe I should ask something else to get my mind off of it. What about him? Do you feel uncomfortable around him? Well, maybe. Not really. He chuckled quietly, a few fingers reaching out to thoughtfully stroke through his whiskers. I can't blame you for being on edge. He may seem intimidating, but I assure you he's mostly harmless. Mostly? A figure of speech is all. Tonwhack isn't much of a conversationalist, so it can be off-putting for some. But don't let that stop you. It's a good sign that he's taken this much interest in you so far. Interest, huh? He didn't seem that eager to talk to me when we first met, but I guess he might just I think he might just need to open up more. Despite his intimidating size and that grizzly scar, maybe he's just shy. If I had to give my personal opinion, I would say he's someone you can trust. The snow leopard chuckled softly, tucking his thumbs into his pockets. No, actually, I'm from Montreal. Well, he's farther away than I am from home. Isn't it a bit of a... I paused, trying to think of the term. Culture shock? He laughed, a warm sound as he smiled wide, showing off those pointed fangs. At first, I wasn't really used to small town living, but it quickly grew on me. I tilted my head a bit regarding the snow leopard. I'm mostly here due to federal mandates. Mandates? Well, it wouldn't do for smaller towns out in the fringes to be without a medical professional. He smiled, and besides, I find my work rewarding. I think I would rather be out here treating illnesses and setting bones than back home toiling in obscurity. I started to think that would happen to Tonwhack without my medical intervention. He probably looked like a patchwork doll before too long. An awkward chuckle came from me as I rubbed the back of my head awkwardly. He seemed to be confused by the request, his expression screwing up. I suppose so. It's not exactly a professional thing for me to do, but you've been through a traumatic experience, so I suppose it's warranted. Moving closer, he opened his arms. I could instantly tell he wasn't used to giving hugs. His gait impossible, stiff, robotic, like someone attempting to replicate something they've only seen before. Still was better than nothing. I found myself gravitating into those arms, hugging the doctor tightly. At least he was a little warm, the feeling of another body against me doing a lot to calm my nerves in this chilly office. He patted me over the back. His movements were rigid, as if unsure how he should go about giving a hug. Either way, it ended quickly, the doctor pulling back, giving me an awkward smile. So, is there anything else you would like to ask? No, not really. I guess that answers just about everything. Well, regardless, I'm afraid that you must be stuck here for some time. If Tom Wack isn't willing to provide you lodgings for an extended stay, you can come back to my clinic and I'll see about setting something up for you. Well, just a generous offer. I'm not really sure what I expected from a small village nestled in the Yukon. Not a free doctor's visit, food, and a stay with someone I just met, that's for sure. Thanks a lot. I managed to mumble, rubbing the back of my head bashfully. I wasn't really sure what to do in a situation like this. Generous offers weren't exactly thrown my way on a daily basis. Oh, will you see him? Let him know that I want him in my office before the end of the week. Tilting my head, I gave the doctor a confused look. He still needs to do his yearly physical. My brow arched. Couldn't you ask him yourself? The doctor chuckled in amusement. Why travel all the way out to his cabin again when you can let him know for me? I guess I couldn't really argue that logic. He threw me a wink before slipping around the corner, his bushy tail flipping past last. And just like that, I was left alone in the quiet, sterile room. Leaving the clinic was faster than entering, maybe just because I wanted to get going or I was more familiar with the place now. Just as I was about to step through the door, I ended up crashing into a mass of brown fur. Both of us staggered, a few magazines going flying off the front table from our tail. Hey, watch it! Sorry. And Timberwolf glared at me, light green eyes looking me over with scrutiny. Haven't seen you around before. I'm just visiting. Whatever, just clean up the mess. He stepped past me without saying another word, his fluffy tail giving a few flicks as he went into the back. What the heck is his problem? Does he work here or something? It looked like he was carrying 2 cups of to-go coffee as well. Probably pissed that he could have spilled it. Picking up the nearby magazines and organizing them back onto the table, I could hear a faint conversation go on down the hall. My short ears swiveled as I stood back up. I probably shouldn't listen in. I mean, the doctor just checked me out for free. The guilt that I was already headed towards the nearby wall to eavesdrop weighed on me. I should probably go back to Tomwack. After all, he's out there in the cold waiting for me. Turning away from the muffled conversation, I headed for the front doors. I was back out in the freezing cold once more. The sun was hanging even lower. Guess it's getting late. I hurried my way through town, snow crunching under my sneakers as I squeezed tighter under my coat. The wind wasn't doing any favors with the cold. It felt like icy knives were slicing right through me. Ugh. I'm really going to need another coat, or maybe a layer of coats. At least I kind of knew my way back. I could make out my earlier undisturbed footprints in the snow, backtracking as I headed away from the town. Out in the distance near the tree line, I could spot the outline of the same bear and snowmobile as before. Part of me was a little surprised he was still there. Another part was even more surprised to find him in the same exact spot he was almost an hour ago. The bear was completely oblivious to my approach. He was sitting along the edge of his seat, his booted foot kicked over his knee. It looked like he was working on something. He must have been particularly absorbed because he didn't even hear the crunching of snow as I got closer. It looked like he was whittling something. The first piece of wood was in his grasp, the poor bear slipping a knife along it. Small chips of wood went raining down, the bear hanging it over the edge of his vehicle as he nipped and scratched. you're back. Despite my observations, it seemed the bear was very aware of me. The whittling continued, the glinting knife slipping around the chunk of wood in his pot. It looked like he wasn't very far in whatever he was doing. "How's your head?" "Good." The pocket knife in his hand looked comically small, those dense discs having engulfed the hilt almost completely. He seemed to be consumed with what he was doing, his eyes subtly shifting, keeping his gaze on the wood, as if every movement he made was calculated. Not that I could tell what for, it still looked like a hunk of wood to me. Guess I don't have the artist's eye for this sort of thing. "Oh." My voice came out as a pop, suddenly remembering Philip's request. The doctor wants to see you later." Tarwack lets out a grunt as if he barely heard me, or whatever I had to say wasn't particularly important to him. "You said you need your yearly checkup or something like that." Still no response. I could feel a small amount of frustration building up. What is with this guy? Why is he so obtuse? No wonder the doctor had trouble communicating with him. It seemed he preferred grunts to actual dialogue. Well, I don't really need to talk to the guy. I just need to survive long enough until I can get out of here. "Do you wish to stay?" The question caught me off guard. Coming out of left field, the big bear watching me. "Huh?" "At the village. If you have no other place, you may stay with me." Funny that he's asking. Philip had offered to let me stay with him, but it probably wasn't a good idea to change things up when I have a dent in my head. "Can I stay with you? That is, if you don't mind," I offered. I laughed awkwardly, rubbing the back of my neck. "Yeah, I guess you did." "Well, that settles that at least. Now the only thing left was to see if I couldn't get a call out so someone could pick me up. My options were limited on that front, and I really didn't want it to be my parents. There'd be no end to the lecturing they give me, not only for wrecking out the car they bought me as my graduation gift, but for being so stupid as to drive it into the far mountains into another country. My sister might be able to help, but I wasn't sure if it was a good idea for her to drive all the way down here. After all, she was even further north. An intrusive thought passed through my mind, a certain line passing over my mind's eye, an image that made me recoil, automatically pushing it away. A rumble of a sound snapped me out of my thoughts. The scarred polar bear watched me intently, already straddling the seat of his snowmobile. He didn't even have to speak, already picking up on his intent as I suffered my way through the snow and onto the seat behind him. The engine rumbled back to life, the front headlights turning, illuminating the snow ahead. Tarwack turned us around without much effort, the front skis zipping over the frozen pet snow as we went along. Just like before, the chill wind blew through my fur, causing me to hunker down into my jacket and behind the broad wall of a polar bear in front of me. The afternoon heat was beginning to recede, the warmth of the sun vanishing, replaced with an even colder chill. It took a moment before I realized that my forehead was lazily pressed against a bear's back. Yes, I was too tired to really notice. My eyes closed as I leaned my forehead against his broad back once more, listening to the chills of the chill air whip by as we continued on our journey. The nagging question on my mind was why it was so easy to relax around this guy. I only just met him, and his stony nature should have been off-putting. Maybe I was just scared to be alone. Despite being blunt as can be, he was still nice to me, giving me food, pulling me out of the snow, even taking me to get checked up. The trees around us were beginning to thin, allowing me to spot the bear's cabin ahead in the open clearing. It was a welcome sight considering how tired I was getting. The engine cut off as Tarwack pulled the snowmobile up to the edge of the cabin. The vehicle rocked and wobbled as we moved his large body off of it, heading straight for the doors without a word. I found myself scrambling to chase after him, nearly falling face first into the snow as I jumped off the back of the seat. So we'll continue with Hearthfire next time. It wasn't a good idea for the author to attempt to leave the cabin without even telling Tomwack thank you, or at least I think he should have just stayed there in bed and rested. If he wanted to do any harm to him, he could have already done it instead of having him in his home in his bed. But the author still just stay in bed. It wasn't a good idea for him to just walk on out and leave without letting Tarmac know or saying thank you for what he did, having him in his home in his bed. So to me, that wasn't a good idea. And if it wasn't for him, the other would be dead from hypothermia or frostbite. So I think the other could be more thankful to the poor bear, Tom Wack, for doing all those things for him, giving him shelter and giving him food, especially when most people wouldn't do any of that for him. And he was very lucky to have a doctor that did all that checkup on him for free. It seemed like this little place has really nice people who go out of their way to do things for complete strangers when they don't have to. Now, the doctor he met, a snow leopard, he mentioned the other mentioned that the snow leopard was taller than him, like about a foot. And that he was probably the same height as Tarwack. So I assume that this other might be like 5'8", 5'9", or just under 6 feet. Because in furry visual novels, they're often portrayed as being small. So I'm gonna guess that both Tom Wack and Philip, the doctor, are close to being like around 7 feet tall. So anyway, the doctor was really nice. That wolf that came in, he was a real jerk. And the author talked about a lion in his memories of a lion. I don't know, maybe he was in a relationship with that lion and they broke up, I guess. I have no idea. So he was coming to see his sister, and instead of flying, he drove out there. And he's from Washington State, so he's an American. And somehow he ended up in Canada because the doctor told him what province he's in. And the author told him he's from Washington State, and the doctor got surprised. And he realized that this guy is American, not from another Canadian province. So I think I heard him say that he was in the Yukon, which is far up north in Canada, which is above British Columbia. Don't know how he got into Canada, but you do have certain parts of Canada without any borders on it. So any border walls or patrols. So I guess, I don't know. Anyway, I enjoyed this part of the game. Looking forward to more of Tarwack. And I really enjoyed the doctor. He's really nice. I'm going to put all the information for the game in the description box soon. So, thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.